Does it feel like new features emerge in Power Apps overnight? Kimberly Williams owns that release process, and today she's going to tell us how it works and how you can get a sneak peek at what's headed to your Power Apps environment. Today on PowerCat Live. Welcome to PowerCat Live. My name is Phil Topness with the PowerCat team, and today I'm here with Kimberly Williams, Product Release Director for Power Apps. Hey, Kimberly.
Hey, Phil. Great to talk to you.
It's good to talk to you, too. Thanks for being here. Now, before we start talking about the release process, talk a little bit about how you got onto this team and how you got here.
Yeah, I love that. So I've been with Microsoft for about 3.5 years, all of my time being on the Power Platform, supporting Power Apps. So I joined Microsoft as a release manager, supporting Power Apps, and I also spent some time working in Power Automate. So I love Power Platform. I love that we are democratizing low-code, no-code solutions for customers and citizen developers. And then before coming to Microsoft, I actually have a multi-industry background. So I worked for Gartner before coming to Microsoft. So people are very familiar with the Magic Quadrant.
Yeah.
PepsiCo before that, so CPG and food and beverage.
Yeah.
And then working in research and innovation programs before that. So I am super passionate about innovation, and that's one of the things that I love about being on this team at Microsoft.
And the work you do is definitely on the cutting edge, right? So, the reason that I was hoping we could talk is, the Power Platform releases, they seem constant. And I imagine behind the scenes, it must be just super complex. What is it like behind the scenes of this release process?
Well, I like the way that you said constant. Maybe I'll say our releases are consistent. And one of the things that we do for that consistency and for our customers is to make sure that with the complexity that is happening behind the scenes, that we provide a unified representation of the product to our customers on the outward-facing piece. Power Apps as one product is released in multiple different pieces. So behind the scenes, we have a studio piece, which is a lot of the maker platform. We have an interface piece, which is more of the UI interface of the product. And then we have some other pieces that contribute to the product. And so each of these pieces have their own systems and I'll say their own process, even though we do follow consistent processes, but together we want to bring that unified representation to our customers.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are so many moving pieces. It is amazing that it just comes through as one unified release. How do people stay up to date on what's coming out then?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Phil, because there are a couple of ways that customers can stay on top of not only what's coming, but what also has been delivered. So when we talk about what's coming for customers, we often talk about that as our release plans or our release wave plans. Those two big release waves are generally delivered in April, right? And then the second wave delivered in October. While those are the major generally available or GA release waves, we offer those changes earlier as early access to customers 2 months before that GA date.
So it's a good way to see what's coming, the big features at least, right?
That's right. There'll be significant changes, and we make those are required to be part of that early access so that customers can plan ahead for that release, so that they can plan in their own test environment or their own sandbox environment, so that when it comes to production, they're ready. They've already tested those changes. They've created new documentation on training for their customers and their users of their apps. And so we try to enable customers to be as prepared as possible.
Now, how do you compare then those giant release waves with the weekly releases you talked about earlier, right? How are those different?
On this release versions Microsoft Docs webpage, there's an ongoing repository that customers can continue to look backwards. So what we're looking at right now, this webpage is referring back to our release wave plan. So this is the view looking forward. And we can kind of take a look down through and see what the big features are, and then some of the smaller components as we release. And then one thing else I'll call out on this page is you can see where we have indicated a date for the public preview. These are for especially new features. And then as part of the wave, the early access, if there's a date associated with early access, and then the general availability. If customers want to be able to see these big new features 2 months ahead of the release wave in April and October, if you want to get those in February and August, you can opt in to this early access opportunity. So now this is all the looking forward planning. Now let's take a look at how do we see what has been deployed and released. And so now I'm switching over. We're still in this docs.microsoft.com, but now we're looking at the released versions for Power Apps. And what you'll see on this page is an outline of the recent releases over the last couple of weeks. You can see we have a release for Unified Interface.
Right.
Then we have that separate release for Power Apps Studio and the Power Apps Mobile. These are the players. And then we have a separate release for the Make.Power App. So these are 3 of our largest components of the product. So you can kind of see these 3 pieces here on this page. And then the other thing I would like to call out is a reference here on this page to our SDP, our safe deployment process. And I'm going to talk about and echo some of the things that Ty Jefferson shared in her interview talking about safe deployment process. But when we deploy, as you can see, we don't deploy worldwide all at once. If you take a look down through these various regions worldwide, you'll notice that there are different versions in some of these regions. And so what this is doing as part of our safe deployment process is, again, we start in regions or areas of lower customer impact, and we gradually expose the new release to regions or areas of greater impact. And by impact, what I'm specifically referring to is numbers of customers. So it's not on a company by company impact. This is number of customers. So as an example, Canada, we can see here is in one of our earlier stations, and this is because we have fewer customers in Canada as compared to when we come out to these later deployment rings. Europe and the United States is where we have the greatest number of customers and therefore the greatest potential impact.
And so you mentioned earlier that actually gives you, if you're in the United States, you can actually see what's coming, right, by what's in the earlier rings.
Right. So this page is a great resource for customers to come and be able to see what was deployed. So it's always fun to come here, particularly look here in this preview, because this is going to be the most recent deployment. And you can see what's there. And then you can click down into these versions and see the release notes that are associated.
It's like time travel.
You're right. It kind of is. It's weird to see time coming back at you, right? If you're in a later state and kind of seeing what's coming. But I'm just to demonstrate that, I'm going to click on one of these. I'm actually going to click on this version here in Power Apps Studio. We're going to take a look at what we call the 10.3 train, or the 10.3 release. And you can, and here is where we've started to indicate we didn't have any major new features. So no new features were reported with that particular update. But we did have a number of fixes and improvements that we wanted customers to be aware of.
Now, certainly there must be times during a deployment where things don't go perfectly. What happens then?
You're right. And I'm going to reference back to our safe deployment process again, our SDB process. And this is exactly one of the reasons why we have this graduated exposure, is so that we can catch issues earlier. First thing we do is we stop the deployment wherever it is. So we want to make sure that we don't impact additional customers. We stop or pause the deployment. we investigate the issue, we get a fix, and then we deploy that fix and then continue with the rollout.
And then this process seems like it's like a well-oiled machine. What happens next? Where do you go next with this process?
So I think one of the things that is really important is feedback, getting feedback from our customers. So I would love to take this opportunity to reach out to our customers and say, give us feedback. Let us know what's working, what's great. And if there's opportunities for us to improve, whether it's improving features of the product or even improving communication about the product. All of that feedback is what can help us continue to mature and improve on our processes. We continue to improve, especially on transparency and communication. So being able to provide these more robust release notes, and these will continue to get more and more robust.
So there you go. If you heard it here, if you want to talk to Kimberly about the release process or provide feedback, leave a comment below on this video. Kimberly, thank you for talking to us about the release process today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Phil, for giving me this opportunity and an opportunity to engage with our customers.
Now, before you go, we are making new videos every week. Click this Microsoft logo to subscribe and you'll be the first to see them. And look over here for a couple of videos that can make you a Power Platform expert.